Oh, hey patrons, time for Storytime with Carl again. This is October 2019, and we've had a big heat wave coming through here. It's usually nice and cool in October, but lo and behold, it's been in the 90s, and I heard somebody say the other day, ooh, he's wiping sweat off his brow, and he's like, ooh, this is Africa hot. Maybe not. Where does that phrase come from, Africa hot? Obviously, it's hot in Africa. Well, when I hear the phrase Africa hot, it kind of has a different meaning to me. And what it goes back to was 2002, my old unit we had just come back from the initial invasion of Afghanistan. We got back and immediately we got sent over to the Horn of Africa to this place called Camp Lemonnier. Everybody calls it Camp Lemonade. And at the time, it's a big military base now for the military, for our U.S. military. But at the time, it was brand new. We're still living out of tents. And Djibouti used to be a French colony, so it's now it's its own country, but the French military still has a large presence there. And so at the air base there, right in Djibouti there, in the capital, you've got the French air base is on one side of the airfield along with the international airport. And then the other side of the air base is where the Americans were. There was a small little mine clearing camp there and another little French camp. But for the most part, the whole other side of the airfield was the French Air Force. And then our side was the American sector. And what you had there was what CENTCOM was setting up was their CRIF, or their CRE, the Crisis Response Element. And the mission of the CRE was, if anything happened in the whole CENTCOM AOR, the SIF company, my company, we were trading back and forth with our sister company, B23, and we were supposed to be able to jump on the helicopters or the airplanes and go to anywhere in CENTCOM's AOR and take care of any hostage rescue missions until the national asset got there. Delta, coming in from Fort Bragg. That's the CRIF mission. So anyways, by the time we got there, the Cree had already set up their little base camp and everything. There was a colonel assigned to the camp, and he had Sergeant Major with him and everything, and we didn't know who these guys were. They were just in charge of the CRIF. Now, there was a MC-130 there, a Talon, that basically was set up to fly us, do whatever we needed, but there was also a row of Air Force MH-53 helicopters. They're a big special ops helicopter, larger than the Black Hawk, but because they've got so much avionics and everything and all the extra fuel bladders, everything, they really can't lift that much more than a Black Hawk. But the cool part was you could drive up in the back with the ATVs. You could even get a Tacoma pickup truck in the back. You couldn't get a Humvee in it, but you could get a Tacoma pickup truck. So anyways, that was the basic mission that we had there. They weren't going to let us do any ops, combat ops, which sucked, but the main, why would you do that? Delta was already in theater in Afghanistan. We were already spooling up to do ops in Iraq. At the time, you got to remember, during the initial invasion of Afghanistan, 193 Green Berets took over the entire country of Afghanistan, working with the Northern Alliance in under 200 days. That's pretty cost-effective use of force there. Bush was on a roll, so he decided to start his whole Stomp Through Humanity tour and decided he was going to take on the axis of evil, North Korea, Iraq, and Iran. So he knew Iraq was going to be a cakewalk. He's starting to spin up to go to Iraq, but they weren't in Iraq yet, right? So this is in 2002. Why were we there, really? Well, because at the time, the CIA was still doing ops in Somalia, And we were kind of like their quick reaction force. There's also stuff going on in Yemen, stuff going on in different places, and we were planning ops. We just never got approval to go do any of them. So we're basically on the string as a QRF force for, if these CIA operatives in Somalia got into trouble, the helicopters could swoop in, we could take care of them. So we had a kind of a real world mission, but what do you do while you're sitting there at the airfield with nothing to do? And I've got some great stories about the training that we did there, everything from shooting baboons and anyway, hunting packs of wild dogs. I've got great stories that I plan on sharing with you all another day. But back to where I get post-traumatic stress, where I hear the word Africa hot. It was one particular night at a little training area that we had, and it was 3-4 hours drive away at this place right on the Gulf of Aden, right on the beach, and it was called Restaurant Beach. That's what we called it. And it used to be a resort, so there were all these bungalows right there on the coast where, when the French had this colony a lot larger, that Europeans would come there and everything. So the bungalows were still there, but they were basically like concrete hulls, shells. They didn't have any roofs on them or anything, but we were allowed to conduct training there. And when you drove down there to go do your training and stuff, the trucks would go, you drive by this French commando base, which is cool because they had this huge French commando obstacle course all up on the side of the cliffs, and we would go training on it, and we had a good time with it. But this one particular mission, every so often what the commanders will do is they'll do what's called the FMP, or full mission profile. That's where you're no longer just doing training on your own. The commanders want to actually assess your unit to see if you guys are actually mission ready. Okay, so the Cree commander, you got to remember, he's over all these Air Force units, aircraft, helicopters, everything. There was a part of a SEAL platoon attached to us. We had Air Force PJs and medical crews to work on the helicopters, all kinds of stuff. It was a complete crisis response element, complete with vehicles, everything. So they put together this full mission profile for us. Now, the mission for the assault force was going to be to conduct a hostage rescue on Restaurant Beach. It was going to be a helicopter infill. It was simulating basically flying either into Somalia or into Yemen, somewhere like that. Multiple hours, multiple aerial refuelings, stuff like that. Now, to play the part of the bad guys, the Cree there, the Camp Lemonade in Djibouti, it had a whole Marine unit there, and there was a Marine task force. I think it was the Nassau or something like that. One of those Marine little mini aircraft carriers was there, and they brought a whole company of Marine infantry in there on a Camp Lemonade, and basically these Marines were going to play the part of the bad guys. Now, are the Marine infantry trained better at tactics, desert warfare than a terrorist group might be? Yeah, and these guys had every intention of making it much harder on us. And it was kind of a joke in the chow hall that the Marines were going to tear up these SF guys. So my snipers, we got the mission to infill, and basically there was a window of 72 hours that the assaulters had to plan their op and get in there and do a hostage rescue within the next 72 hours. Okay, so that meant that night, right away, my snipers were going to infill. Now, it wasn't just my team. It was going to be, we have 3 sniper teams, SO1, my team, SO2, and SO3. Where it was going to be set up, where Restaurant Beach is there's one cliff just to, I want to say, to the south of it, that the cliff actually jetted out into the ocean. So it was basically Restaurant Beach was set right up against, closed off to the rest of the world, which if at a resort people want to be secluded, there's only one way to drive into the valley, and you could see out in that direction for miles and miles and miles. So my team, course, me volunteering for the harder job, we're going to take that side that's right close to the target. A lot more dangerous, but that's the way Carl likes it. So the other two teams were going to be set further back. The good note of it was when it actually came time to do exfil, my team didn't have to travel as far to get on the helicopters. Okay, easy stuff. My team, I had we basically 4 guys. It was my 3-man team. It was me, my commo guy, my spotter, Pete Chin. I had this guy called Akil Mahmoud Bey, not an Arab guy. His father was Muslim, but he's devout Baptist, black guy, just total animal. Akil's now a great civilian instructor. If you've ever hear of somebody talking about an instructor, he does a lot of NRA stuff. Akil is awesome. Pete Chin is awesome. So it's going to be my 3-man team. Each of the other teams were small also. Now, as far as equipment, part of our job was to infill, confirm that, yes, there were bad guys there or not, possibly confirm or deny that the hostage was there, but also take photos, do a whole, what we call a GOS, grid overhead sketch, do detailed photos, layouts, diagrams of the whole target area. Survey the areas to land the helicopters. What are the sizes of the doors? What are the sizes of the windows? So if the assault force has to build explosive charges to match the doors, if we could come up with the exact height of the doors, widths, everything, other barriers, do they need quickie saws, do they need huli tools, gather all this information. Now, we're good at this because remember, we've been doing this for years now, so we would take photographs, everything, and we would do panoramic photos, cut and paste all the pictures together. And then we had a Toughbook computer that we would infill with, and I'd edit all this stuff in like PowerPoint, and I found PowerPoint's a lot easier to convert photos than Corel Draw or all these other programs that we had for doing sketches and everything else. And we had backups in case the computer died. We could literally draw it out on graph paper and then send that whole graph paper via code digitally or do it by voice. Literally, we had backup to the backup to backup, but we were infilling with a laptop computer. We were infilling with a SATCOM radios. We each had our own little radios also, but we had SATCOM so that we could send not just voice calls, but also send digital files via satellite all the way back to Tampa if we needed to, back to the Pentagon. So that was the mission. We were going to infill, collect data, and then when the assaulters actually go to conduct the assault, we would collapse down, set up final firing position, provide cover fire for the assault force as they came in, and then we would exfil, get on the helicopters, fly out with the assault force. Easy stuff. I've done this stuff all the time. So we're out in the middle of Africa, so we don't really need ghillie suits, but I still would carry ghillie nets. I had a little dry bag that I carried ghillie nets in to put around the hide site. Each guy carried, I want to say it was around 15 quarts of water. I think one of the 2 guys had like 13 quarts. I had 15 quarts of water, 3 days worth of chow. I liked, of course, my chocolate covered espresso beans, which always melted on me. Spotting scope, obviously. You had to have the night, what we call the night owl. It was a night scope that we could hook to the spotting scope, big Swarovski spotting scope, tripod for that, and then the digital camera to put up against the back of the spotting scope or back of the night owl that was up to the spotting scope. Night vision for everybody. I had my SR-25 with a night sight for that. Pete Chin was running a SPR-556 with a night sight for that. Akil Mahmoud Bey, he was our M203 gunner, so he carried a load of 40 millimeter rounds in addition to his basic load of 556. Now, we're literally like a mile or 2 from the border of Somalia, so we carried all live ammo, live everything, because this could go ugly real quick. So we're still ready to conduct combat ops. This was a training mission against the Marines. We weren't actually going to shoot any of the Marines. The assault force coming in, they would be running simunitions. So they would be actually shooting the role players. But as far as the snipers up on the hill, I'm not going to let some Somali pirates come take my gun from me. I'm not even worried about that at all. Now, one thing I wasn't really big on was our team sergeant, the master sergeant for my A team. The way you usually do it is the 3 sniper teams infill, and then your team warrant officer, your captain, and the team sergeant usually stay back with the assault force. The assaulters are all gathered around the tactical operations center with the commander, but off of that you have what's called the tactical information center, the TIC. That's where all of our intel would get poured into, sent to, and then they would clean it all up, make it pretty, and they would then go post it in the tactical operations center so that the assault force and the commander could look at it. So the raw data went to the tactical information center. Well, my team sergeant, he didn't like sitting back in the rear, not at all. This was a training op, and his whole thing was, the warrant officer and the captain do not need me back here. I'm going to go in with one of my teams to make sure they're doing the right thing. And by that, I mean, he's right. Teams, we didn't have to pull security. We didn't have to stay tactical. It was a training op. Technically, we could have built a campfire if we wanted to, and the Marines never would have seen it. We could have shot a gazelle and cooked it up over the grill. So anyways, in his defense, he came along, and we did a bunch of different training ops, and he would go with a different team every time. This particular time, he came with me, came with my team. Now, he knows I'm not big on being babysat, and he said, Carl, I'm going to stay off to the side. You won't even know I'm there. Okay, Jeff, his name was Jeff. Okay, Jeff, we'll see. So we conduct mission planning and everything, plan our infill, primary landing zone, alternate landing zone, contingency landing zone. Now, I'm infilling sniper teams. I don't want them to get compromised by the bad guys on the target. So I've got to land this MH-53, even though there's a beautiful spot, like a kilometer away from the target, maybe 1.5 kilometers. That's where the Air Force wanted to land. And I thought about it, and I was like, the way the ridge lines were wrapping, it's going to just channelize the noise, and the Marines would have heard the helicopter. It's a training op. I could have done it, but I believe in training for real. So I did what I thought was right, and I said, look, we need to be on the backside of this ridge line, and the nearest place a helicopter could put down, it was like 5-6 kilometers away from where we needed to be. Pissed my guys off, really pissed the team sergeant off, because he didn't want to walk all the distance. I don't care. I'm in charge. This is what we're doing. So we load up on the MH-53s, and the Air Force are a bunch of badasses. They got their miniguns on both side windows. They got a 50 cal on the ramp. My guys load up. There's 4 of us on the whole helicopter, and I do what I always do. I got an extra long safety line. I snap link into the floor of the helicopter. Got my rucksack up there, and I walk out and I sit on the ramp right next to the 50 cal gunner. The gunners always sit on the edge of the ramp with their legs hanging off. I go sit next to them. First couple times you do that, they don't want you there. They're like, you need to be seat belted in, all that stuff. But after working with us long enough, they realize that there's a method to my madness. Now, he doesn't have to care where he is, the tail gunner, because the helicopter knows where it's at. But me, I need to know where I'm at. Now, I have my small little GPS with me, and it doesn't get real good satellite reception inside a aluminum helicopter. So I like to sit on the ramp, and that way my GPS can see the stars, and I can keep track of where I'm at. Now, I'm wearing the headset, and I'm talking to the pilot and everything the whole way. My long safety line, I'm not gonna fall out of the helicopter. I sit on the ramp for the whole ride, and they played it to the hilt. They had to fly out so many hours, do the aerial refueling of the helicopter behind the MC-130. I mean, because the air crews were being evaluated also. So anyways, we fly out for hours. We finally come in, and we land a terrible illumination but the helicopter comes in and they drop us off. We get out there and it is all jagged lava rock everywhere. We've got to climb up this thing just to get down into our valley. And by the time we get up to the top, I think 2 of the guys have rolled their ankles all purple and everything. We're having to stop every so often, map checks, water breaks, because it's Africa hot out. I want to say it's like 90 degrees at, probably 2 o'clock in the morning. It's still 90 degrees outside, and we're completely soaked in sweat, and just bugs are tearing us up, everything. But we crest the top, we work our way down. We find a little goat trail. Once we get up top, we found a goat trail, follow the goat trail down, and we're about 500 meters behind the target. Now, we're down at eye level. Now there's so much scrub brush, this, that, and the other. We can't see the target buildings, but we know they're there. You can see the ridges wrapped around. The ocean is out there. You got the smell of the ocean coming in. And we know Restaurant Beach is about 500 meters in front of us. There's no lights, no nothing. So we set up what's called our objective rally point. Basically, we do the rucksack flop. We drink some more water. I double check my location on the GPS. We circle the rucksacks. And what objective rally point is you don't just stop there. You don't just go up to a target and lay down and set up your sniper rifle. You got to be smarter than that. You've got to stop, drop your rucksack so you can move quickly, lightly with more stealth, and then you go out and you recon. You actually find the best place to put in your sniper hide. So I get there and I got the team sergeant here babysitting me. Now I'm getting older. I've been sniper cell leader for quite a while. I know I'm getting ready to come up to make master sergeant myself. And Pete Chin and Akil are great guys. These guys are ready to be sniper cell leaders. They just need a little more mentoring. Akil grew up as an assaulter. These guys had only been on a few ops. Pete had done the initial invasion of Iraq with me later on, but he was new to the team also. But I want to make these guys better. Here's another chance for me to educate these guys. So I'm like, hey, look, I'm going to wait here with Jeff, the team sergeant. You 2 guys go recon, find me a final firing position, place to set up the sniper rifle. So they take off. I told them to be back in hour and a half. So they come rolling back in, and hey, we got a great location. And the whole time they're gone, I've already told Jeff where I'm going to put the hide site, and he wasn't happy with that either. So, I mean, unless they find a better place. If they find a better place, okay, so be it. So they end up coming back to the car. We've got the perfect location. This thing is awesome. Man, we can see barely the front of the target, but we're covering the side perfect. It's awesome. It's awesome. We can see behind the targets. We can see in front of the targets, the target structure. It's going to be great. We can lock this thing down. The other 2 sniper teams, by the way, now remember, we're real close to the target. The other 2 sniper teams, one of them's like 2 kilometers away in the opposite direction. The other one is like 2 kilometers towards the rear. Kind of, they're both covering the backside. We're going to be covering the southern side and the east side facing the water. These guys are both up near the north. I let Akil and Pete lead me out there, and they find a perfect location to set up the sniper rifle. It is literally like 175 meters from the edge of that first building. Now, is that too close to shoot? No, and here's why. In the dark, taking out sentries on the assault countdown, remember, these are not paper targets. They are living, breathing targets. I would always guarantee the commander that if you can get me within 250 meters of the target, I guarantee you support of your assault force. Now, 250 meters, Carl, that's nothing. I want you to think about what my mission is. My mission is not shooting guys at 1,000 meters. That's not my job. My job is to support the assault force. So if the assault force is getting ready to come in and there's a sentry out there who's getting ready to see the assault force, I need to be able to shoot that guy silently without anybody hearing it, without any other guards hearing it. Now, remember that because subsonic ammo is not that accurate, one. And two, the actual conduct of the assault, I need to be able to reduce targets, not bad guys, not just on my side of the structure, but anywhere else on target. So even though I'm within 200 meters of my side, if it's a 100-meter wide target, the closest those far guys would be 300 meters. Now, they're moving fast, and I've got to do this in the dark, and I've got to shoot on the assault countdown. All right, now think about this. If you're shooting 0 reflex kill shots to take out a sentry, you can't shoot a sentry in the chest or the abdomen because all he's got to do is fire 1 bullet, and he's going to compromise the whole mission. So you're basically aiming at the T-box that the FBI snipers test for. Now, the FBI snipers don't shoot past 100 meters. That's their test for that T-box. I'm guaranteeing the commander I can do this in the dark on the assault countdown out to 250. You see how my standard is set a lot higher than what a lot of the other units are. Can we shoot out to 6, 7, 800, 1,000? Yes, we can. But my final firing position needs to be within 250. That's not what we're doing right now. We're not shooting right now. Right now, we're supposed to be finding a hide site to observe from. Now, my guys find this is a perfect hiding spot. We're there and we can't stay here, guys. And they're looking at me like, why not? And I'm like, because this is the perfect hiding spot. The Marines are going to find this. Why? Because the Marines want to catch the Green Berets that are pulling surveillance on this target. So the Marines are going to be out doing roving patrols. How far out will the Marines go? They'll start in close, but they'll eventually work further and further and further out. Guys, our hide site needs to be further back. There's only one place we can go where the Marines can't find us, can't get to us, and that's at the top of that cliff right there. So we end up backing up and we work our way. It takes us to pretty well right just before sunup. We finally make it to a spot, and I work us way out to the very, very edge. Remember I mentioned that cliff actually goes out into the ocean. There's no way anybody can walk around on the beach. There is no beach. There's a beach at Restaurant Beach. Our cliff jets out in the ocean, and then there's another little alcove behind it. But there's no way without climbing on the rocks anybody's going to. There's not going to be any roving patrols getting to us, my point. So we're up there and we're looking down. There's just enough starlight. We can see this thing. We set up the spotting scope and night vision. There's no bad guys on target. Nada. There's nobody there. There might have been 1 or 2 people there just to pull security, but we could not see any Marines on target. Okay. Sun comes up a couple hours later. This is morning of day 1. Now remember, we are wore out. My boys are wore out. We've got priorities of work to do. So we immediately start shooting photos. You start off with panoramic photos of everything, and then you do close-up photos through the spotting scope, details of the breach point, details of the windows, other entrances, any information we can get. And while we're taking this, I'm filling out the initial report, and we've got certain reports that we have to send via SATCOM and everything. We take this is all textbook stuff, right? Well, up rolls like 5 big Marine transport vehicles, and they start unloading cases of MREs, all kinds of stuff, and they immediately start sending out roving patrols. Now, the Marines start doing recons. What we didn't know was back at the Chow Hall, the Cree commander, our commander, the Special Ops commander, had basically made a bet with the Marine commander that his Marines couldn't catch our snipers, is basically what the bet was. These guys are out there hard, these Marines doing roving patrols. I'm not worried about it. They're not going to find me. But they weren't there 15 minutes before they were walking through where we were the night prior, where my other two guys, Pete and Akil, had picked out the perfect spot for us. The Marines had rolled it up in the first 15 minutes. Now, there were boots from, there were desert boots, tracks there, yes, but remember, this place has been used for training for months since we first got there, so they didn't try cutting our trail. Besides, they wouldn't have been able to follow us because we had to climb on all this rock, and it took us hours to get up to the top. But we're in good. But that said, I have my guys hunkered down. I had already pulled out my ghillie nets. Now, up where we're at, there's nothing. This is solid black lava rock. We're piling a few rocks up to try to give us a little bit more cover. There's a couple little scrub brushes, and I'm kind of hanging my ghillie nets and cutting pieces from other scrub brush and adding it to it to kind of make it look like there's a couple bushes up top there. So basically, if anybody at the bottom, if their snipers are at the bottom, putting their spotting scopes and searching the areas, they're not going to be able to find our spotting scopes or find our glass. And the cool part is because we're oriented basically due north, remember Gulf of Aden, we're on that shore of it. The sun comes up off to our flank, it passes behind us. I don't have to worry about sun reflecting off of our optics. We're good to go, we're good to go. I take my time, I'm getting, editing my photos, pasting everything together, and it just starts getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Now, I had to knock out all those pictures and everything right away, right when the sun first comes up. And the reason why you have to do that, if you've ever worked in the desert, is looking through that spotting scope. If you don't get detailed photos right at sun up, the mirage, the heat waves rising off of everything makes it a blur. Now, you're still able to watch the target. You can see people moving and everything. But as far as getting detailed pictures, it's terrible. You can't see nothing. I know that. I send nothing but high quality stuff. I took all those pictures right at sunup. But by the time we get everything done and we're watching the patrols and being careful, next thing you know, it's 10 o'clock and I still haven't sent all of my reports yet. So no big deal. Start editing my stuff. Well, by 10 o'clock in the morning, this sun is already right high in the sky. It's burning down on us. And I mean, it's burning down on us hard. I'm sitting there and trying to send the reports and these photos usually take, now they're large files. I'm not compressing any of this because I need the assault force to be able to blow these pictures up so they can put them up on the wall, 3 feet by 5 feet, so the assault force can plan their ops and stuff. So I'm sending them high resolution pictures. It takes a lot of bandwidth and the radio gets really hot. And the radio ends up overheating and quitting. Well, shit. I'm pissed off, this isn't working, and I try it again. Then I end up trying to send smaller files, and the radio keeps overheating. So now the radio's in the shade, I'm pouring water on the radio. I actually learned later on that to bring chemical ice packs to pop to ice my radio down. That's one lesson I learned from this trip. That's how hot it got. How hot did it get? Now by noon, now I've got sweat dripping off my nose down onto the keyboard of this tough book. So much sweat is dripping that the J key and the H key, those two keys are side by side. That's right where my nose was. I noticed when I'm typing these reports, my H and my J are not working anymore. And what it was is there was so much sweat had dripped and gotten underneath the keys and dried in the salt. The salt had built up around the keys. I want that to sink in how much I'm sweating. And my guys are oblivious. They're underneath bushes, all just spread out, just trying to find some shade. They're screwed. I'm watching the spot and scope, letting my guys rest, trying to take care of my guys. And my rucksack is canted to the side. And so I've got a little bit of shade, a little window there. And I actually hung my Sunta watch off the strap of my rucksack. Now my Sunta watch is hanging in the shade of my rucksack. The sun's not beating on my watch, but I'm kneeling on all this black lava rock. You can't lay on it because it's too hot. And so I look over and I checked my watch, and now remember, ambient temperature according to the weatherman is like 115, 120 degrees out. Ambient temperature. My Suunto watch said 145 degrees. Now, I've been in this thing all day long, 145 degrees. I quit looking at my watch. Oh, it was terrible. It was freaking terrible. Second night, so sun finally goes down. We're tore up. Drinking water when you can, eating, pulling security. Marines are still out hunting for us. By now, the Marines are tore up, and they're done looking for us. They couldn't find us, so they've basically given up, and they're just hanging out. They're Marines, so they're doing what they're told. They're told to occupy the place. So they're out throwing footballs and doing everything else. I needed a couple of pictures. The assault force had actually requested a couple of detailed photos of the front of the east side of the target. I couldn't see the east side from where I was at. They were wanting me to go down during the day. Couldn't do it because Marines were actually coming up basically where that final firing position was, coming up a little ways towards us to go take a dump, go take a shit. One guy came up and was jacked off. He thought he was by himself. He didn't realize there was a spotting scope a quarter mile above him. Marines do weird things, right? So anyways, I need photos right before sundown. I got my other guys on the scope. I take a pistol in my fanny pack. I take my camera and the spotting scope. I got the spotting scope. It's padded. It's got a sling on it. I sling it across my back, and I climb down all these rocks. I actually get right down to the edge of the water and basically come up through the surf a little bit. I didn't leave the cliff. I didn't get up on the restaurant beach, but I came around the side far enough out that with the spotting scope, sat between two rocks, got the water hitting my boots. I pulled my camera out of the Ziploc bag, hooked it on the spotting scope, and I was able to take the pictures of the front of the target that the assault force requested. Okay, cool. Get my pictures, sneak back, climb back up the rocks on the backside to get all the way up top. And we made it through the night. Night was cool. That's about the only relief you get. The Marines are out down there building a fire, again throwing a football. Everyone, and the Marines are awesome now. Now they had guys out pulling guard duty, night vision, everything. They had guys out, but the rest of the Marines are relaxing like they should be. Day two, we get hit with another heat wave. We are just freaking dying up on the mountain. And sitting there, my turn to watch the spotting scope. I look over at my guys, and one of them had made a comment earlier how my boot was still wet when I came up that night. And he asked me, he said, "Carl, how did your feet feel getting in the water?" I could tell he was envying me just having wet feet, letting my feet cool off. That's how hot these guys were. These guys were hot from the top of their head down to the tips of their toes. So I'm looking down at the Marines. The Marines aren't doing nothing. No more roving patrols. The Marines are too hot. They're overheated. My guys are hiding in the bushes, trying to soak up a little shade. And they got their tops off, and they're just dying. And I look over the back shoulder, and behind me, there's a little cove where the waves are crashing in. And I look down there, and my guys are looking and making comments about how cool the water looks and everything. So I actually let my guys, my two guys, not Team Sergeant stayed up there with me. I let Pete and Akil take their pistols and slither down the side of the hill and go and get in the ocean. These guys got completely into the water, completely in the water. And the whole time I'm watching, make sure no Marines are coming around the side. I got so jealous. I even pulled the spotting scope off the Marines and was watching my guys down there. And they're down there, they're up to their nose and their mouth just sticking out of the water, soaking it up. They stay down there for, I don't know, probably 30, 40 minutes. Then they climb back up to us. These boys were completely dry, bone dry, uniform covered with white salt, where their sweat, it was like suits of armor when they would bend their uniform, completely dry by the time that's how hot it was. Miserable. We keep sending our intel updates and back to the assault force, and about dinner time, we got a frago. Mission came to us. It's official. The commander has approved the assault briefing. It's going to be a helicopter assault right on the X. In other words, the helicopters are going to land right there on the beach, right in front of the targets at 0200 hours. Okay. Sun finally goes down. We start packing up our stuff. This is our third night on the ground. We've only been on the ground 2 days. Right? Only been on the ground 2 days. Not that bad. So we slither down the cliffs and everything. We moved to our final firing position. Now, it wasn't right where the other guys had picked it. I picked another spot slightly further off to the east on the cliff, harder to get to, basically with one more terrain feature up, make it a little harder for the Marines to get, because you never know when another Marine's going to have to go take a crap. But we go set in our final firing position. Now, there are guards out there on the beach everywhere. Now, the concept of the snipers coming down from their observation points, by techniques, we come down and we occupy the final firing position. The point of it is so that we can provide close target fire, accurate fire on the enemy as the assault force moves to the breach point. In this case, as soon as the guards outside make note of the sound of the helicopters, because you'll hear helicopters all night long, but the bad guys, they don't, on guard duty, they won't alert anybody, they won't wake anybody else up until that helicopter, they know, hey shit, those helicopters are actually coming here. And then all of a sudden the guards will sound the alarm, they'll wake up all the bad guys, and it turns into a bloodbath. That's the concept of having the snipers there. Right when you see that first guard lock eyes, and right when he's getting ready to give the warning, that's when you start popping the guards, and you just start popping them, laying down accurized suppressive fire until the assault force is down and the helicopters have lifted up. And by then it's usually browned out so bad the snipers can't help any. So anyway, that's the concept of it. And I mentioned earlier, with the suppressed weapons, we could actually take those sentries out, except these are Marines. I can't actually shoot Marines. Now, I actually made myself up there. I pulled a live bullet out and crimped down with my Leatherman, made myself a couple of blanks just because I wanted to shoot. Wouldn't help me any. We don't have any UTM or simunitions that could reach that far. We were still a couple hundred meters out, but it made me feel better. Well, sure enough, I'm watching this guy, and we're talking on the radio. We're talking back to the Tactical Operations Center, and they got comms with the birds and vice versa. And the assault force, we're giving them countdown. We let them know, hey, they're 2 minutes out. All right, they're 90 seconds out. Okay, hey, the guards are actually looking towards the helicopters. The helicopters did a great job. They were using the edge of the ocean and that cliff that we were on. They came up behind the Marines. Now, these are switched on Marines now. They did not know that the assault force was definitely coming until probably less than a minute out. Those 3 MH-53 helicopters came in, landed right on the beach, and assault force offloaded. I fired my blank, my gun jammed, and everything. It was a homemade blank. It didn't matter. We still gave reports, a couple guards squirted out the back, blah, blah, blah. We're providing overwatch for the assault force. Now, the Marines put up a good fight, but again, it's a UTM simunitions war. They cleared all the structures, they're small things. They secured the place. The assault force took a couple casualties, so they actually brought one of the 53s back in that had the PJs, the medevac bird. And we were there to provide overhead cover, overwatch for that. And but the area was secure. Medevac came in, the assaulters brought a couple of the casualties out on Talon litters and have handed them off to the PJs. Bird lifted off. We get the call that, all right, we are collapsing down on target and it is time to exfil. So we get told, all right, snipers, give up Overwatch and actually come in. Now, my team, turns out, we get told we are the only sniper team that's going to exfil with the assault force. The other two sniper teams could not make it close enough to exfil with the assault force. So they're going to actually, one of the other MH-53s, after it picks up the assaulters, is then going to land a second time to pick up the other two sniper teams. So anyways, we collapse down onto the target. I make sure that we've got a good challenge and pass with them. They know that we're coming. We give them the correct IR flash, and the assault force, they sail at that building that we were going to be approaching. They give us the correct signal. Now, this is important because of the 5 times that I've been killed in training, 3 of them were in the regular army back when I was on a recon team, and 3 of those were crossing forward friendly lines, coming back into friendly units. I was killed by friendly fire, basically, is what I'm saying, using the old Miles laser systems with them shooting blanks. So doing link-ups, especially snipers with the assault force, you just don't come running up onto a target, you get shot because they think you're a bad guy. So I'm very big on practicing that. But we linked up, I got great assault force. We linked up with the assault force and joined PZ posture with them. We were soaking freaking wet. I got on the helicopter and the assault force got on. They're loading prisoners and everything, and off the helicopter went. And I pulled out my canteen. It's like my last canteen. My other water bladders, you keep filling up your canteens. And I finished my last canteen of water on the helicopter ride out. Now, I want this to sink in because it sank in with me. Because when we got back, you got to do the debriefing and everything. They talk about what went right, what went wrong. I didn't hear a lot of the debriefing because it clicked in my head. I was told I was supposed to be there for 3 days. 3 days. And they came in on the night of this second day. It was our third night, but it was the second day of the 72-hour period. And I was out of water on exfil. How bad was I out of water? How bad were me and my guys dehydrated? I was hurting, so I told the BT medic, "Hey, stick me with an IV." And needles don't bother me. I was an SF medic. I took 3 1-liter bags of normal saline. I think one was lactated ringers. I took 3 whole liters. I was about halfway through the 3rd bag before I had to take a piss. That's how dehydrated I was. And it has stuck with me. Now, my team, SO1, got solid praises. We were the only team that got pictures of the front of the target. We sent the best panoramic photos. All of our reports were great, even though they were a little late getting them because of the radios overheating. We were the only team that was able to give Overwatch. The reversing the worm formula, lasing the doorways, and then measuring in mils, we could actually give whole accurate measurements of the doors of the target for the breachers to measure their door charges and everything. Great updates, counts on enemies. We got a lot of praise from the Cree commander and the assault force commander on the amount of intel that we were able to give on that operation. And so we got a lot of praise. To them, it was mission success. SO1 was awesome. Carl is awesome. I actually ended up getting picked up from Master Sergeant because, well, among other things, but because of the NCOER, the enlisted report that was done on me after this deployment. So in other words, this op helped me get promoted to Master Sergeant, but it stuck with me that if we had to stay one more day, and let's say we couldn't confirm or deny that the bad guys had the hostage there. If we had to get pushed back one more day, my guys would have been completely out of water. We would have had to request a emergency resupply of water, and which would have meant we would have then had to hike out, do a water resupply. Very doable. We've done that on other ops. We've had to do water resupplies. I got it. Do you ever get pushed back? Now, if you go back and do one of my other story times with Carl where I talk about that mission up on the mountain in Afghanistan, we infilled, it was supposed to be a 3 to 5 day op. 3 to 5 days, I brought 5 days worth of chow with me. We ended up staying to day 7, so we kept getting extended. If that had happened here on this op, if that 3-day op had gotten extended to day 4 or day 5, instead of them pulling us out on day 2, we would have been screwed. We would have been completely screwed. So that always stuck with me. It would have been nice to have had a kit for treating salt water. I had no shortage of salt water. I just didn't have any water that we could drink. There was no river. There was no nothing. I literally had to have support brought in by helicopter. So we didn't need it. It was mission success. Why didn't I plan accordingly? Because I knew it was going to be checking the weather. I checked the weather. We did great terrain analysis. I was planning for 110 degrees just at the height of the day, but the rest of the time and at night it was a comfortable 90 degrees. You're always going to have some sort of shade. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. 15 quarts of water is what I carried. I want that to sink in, because there's all these people that say women should be allowed in the SF because, they can carry the 35-pound rucksack on the road march in Air Assault School. There's a difference between the Air Assault School road march on a flat road with a 35-pound rucksack and a sniper observer team going up the mountains with 15 quarts of water. Not to mention all the rest of the combat gear that we had. So what I did not foresee was having to live on lava rock with my hide site. That was the only good position I had. That was it. It was that or not be able to accomplish the mission. I always put mission first. We made it. Mission success. But right now, sitting here, I can, you notice my eyes keep going like this, because when I turn my head, I can see the slope of my rucksack, and on the top loop of that Alice Pack frame, everybody that's seen an Alice Pack military rucksack, you got that little handle on the top. That's what my Sunto watch was hanging off of. And I'm sitting here glancing, I'm having post-traumatic stress looking at that Sunto watch and leaning it with sweat dripping off my nose, hitting the keyboard, and literally drying into salt as soon as it touches the keyboard, and me seeing 145 degrees. And so anyways, when somebody says it's Africa hot, I've got a different view on that. I've been hot before. I've only been Africa hot one time, and I ain't gonna do it again. So anyways, that's story time with Carl for this month of October 2019. I want to thank all of our patrons again for your continued support. And we love you guys. We're glad to consider you all part of the Tactical Rifleman family. We could not do all this without you. So thanks again for the support. Y'all take care. Shoot straight.